obviously they just beat Marshall. Right, Marshall was the toast of college football a week and a half ago, right? After coming off beating Notre Dame in South Bend. So I would say they're a pretty talented football team who can exploit you in a lot of ways.
What are those ways? What can they do? What do they do that causes you concern?
Well, I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch any of the last game versus Marshall, but they've some spectacular catches by the receiving corps. So you got one receiver listed 6'7". You got multiple tight end sets, 12, 13, 14 personnel. They give you every formation in the book, and so they gave Marshall a lot of trouble between formations and motions, and they got really good ways to attack you. Really good coaching staff.
They haven't thrown any interceptions yet. I mean, obviously you've got a veteran guy that takes care of the football. I mean, how much of a concern is that for you when you've got a guy that doesn't give you a whole lot?
One guy threw 3 games, however many passes that is, hasn't thrown one to the other team. That obviously means he's a really good decision maker, knows to go, has good control over their offense, knows where to go with the football, and doesn't give the defensive many opportunities to get takeaways.
I know you look at the tangibles, but the intangibles of a team that survived 7 overtimes, lost, came back and beat a good team in overtime, the kind of resilience that may show for that squad they have.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their schedule the last couple of years, I mean, I think last year they played at Tennessee to start the season, played a bunch of games. I mean, they're no stranger to playing in SEC venues or against so-called bigger schools and what's supposed to be superior competition. They laugh at all that, right? I mean, they obviously are a really well-coached team and have enough players, and it'll be quite the challenge for us.
Just 4 sacks allowed too. They seem to do a really good job keeping McDonald upright. I mean, what maybe have you seen from the pass protection you can share?
No, just like you said. I mean, obviously when you got a bunch of tight ends in there too, you can create longer edges. You can keep some guys in 7-8 man protections to buy a little more time, and then they get the quarterback on the move as well with a boot game or sprint out. And so, like I said, I mean, they do a really good job of scheming up ways to move the pocket or provide protection so he has time to hit the shots. And we're going to have a challenge on our hands getting a pass rush.
What are some things y'all specifically work on post LSU for this week to get ready, not just for this coming game, but the season as a whole?
Obviously, just executing the defense better. I mean,
and you mentioned the boot game too. LSU kind of found some success with that in the second half. I mean, obviously it's a mimic league, but how much do you expect to see that now that other teams have had a little success with it?
Well, I wouldn't call what LSU did was boot game. I mean, boots are designed to move the pocket. Most of those were quarterback making a play on his own, or we did some stunts in the rush that softened an edge that gave him ability to. So that's my fault as the play call and the coordinator. But yeah, I mean, we've seen boot all season. I mean, it was the opening play of the game versus Memphis this year. Right? We've seen all kinds of boot move the pocket. With what we do defensively, that's not an uncommon thing. So we have to be prepared for it every week.
Well, going through the results of the LSU game, what were some particular things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, just second half. I mean, being more consistent. First half we were really good on third down especially, and then second half we weren't as good. So it just comes down to execution all the way through 4 quarters. And that's kind of what we've really been preaching and trying to get corrected throughout this week.
When you get the first 2 downs right, like you did so many times, how frustrating is it for the third down to get away from you?
No, it's always, anytime, I mean, good football, you got to win on third down on either side of the ball, and we didn't do that in the second half. And so, yeah, no question about it. You put yourself in a position, to have a team on third and long or whatever it may be, man, you got to make sure you execute and get the job done and get off the field.
When you think about, not playing 4 quarters, it seems like that's kind of been a consistent theme, not just defensive, but kind of team-wide. I mean, how do you get the guys to lock in and be consistent for 4 quarters?
I think, some of it early when we got here is just getting a young team to realize that now we've got guys that have been through the battles. So now it's a deal where you got to see it, and when it hits you in the mouth and it happens, I mean, you got to respond and realize that, okay, we get a third quarter and a drive doesn't go right on whatever side of the ball it is, okay? Well, you got to respond and not let that turn into 2 bad drives or one play goes wrong and now another play goes wrong because you're still worried about the last one. Right? Move on, play the next play, play the next drive, whatever it may be, and focus on doing your job. And it's really that simple,
It seems like Deshaun Page has been getting a little more PT. I mean, what have you seen from him that's enabled that to happen?
Yeah, he's done a good job. I told him after the second game, after Arizona, I said probably should have played him a little bit more, to be completely honest with you. But I said, yeah, make sure you put a full week of practice together. And he's done that, really. Going into last week, he did. His playing time increased, and hopefully he'll continue that, this week.
When you have a couple of old guys at your positions there, what do you do you handle them differently during a week when things don't go as well as you wanted, and because they've seen it all before? How do you coach those guys up?
Yeah, that's a good question because to me there's two different ways. You got guys that are blatantly making a bad decision just because they're trying to make a play or whatever it may be, and then there's guys that are trying to do the right thing that just get beat, right? So you handle those situations differently, in my opinion. But they know I have high expectations for them. Our entire defense does. You've been here for a long time. We expect you to execute at a high level, and especially in the linebacker room, there's a lot of guys that played a lot of football, and so I don't think I pulled the pedal back on them much. They would probably agree with that. If you ask them that, but that's just wrong is wrong, and you got to execute, and they know that.
Steve mentioned Deshaun getting in more snaps in there. At the same time, you've got your two best guys. How do you walk that fine line between I need to get these guys snaps, but I have to take my best guys off the field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the thing about it is there comes a point where it's tipping if a guy's fatigued, where now maybe when he's 100% he is the best guy, but all of a sudden at 85% maybe he's not. So you got to make sure you try to balance those reps to not only get your best players in the field but also keep them fresh throughout to play 4 quarters, kind of like Steve was asking.
With 3 games of evidence now, what if your guys done well this year?
I think they've done a good job of handling the things that we're given schematically and asking them to do. I think the leadership has been pretty good. Buki has done a good job of that. I think we need to tackle better. We haven't tackled as well as I wanted to, but I do think there's a lot of good there. But as a coach, you're going to always find the negative and try to correct that. So, but those are the things I've seen them do really well.
A really fast quarterback can make linebackers look slow. Was that just more, not that they're slow, they weren't right at the position to control those?
I think there's different scenarios. One scenario where a little bit we end up playing a little too far in the boundary, he scrambles the field, and really we were kind of a spy on that one. Okay, some of the other ones we're in zone coverage anyways. You're dropping, it just is what it is. He takes off. I mean, there's 6 gaps in there for 4 rushers in that scenario. And so that's just, you're trying to converge on it, Another one, we're in a fire zone. We're bringing 5. Same thing, you're in zone coverage. So, some of that's on them in certain calls, and some of it's just you got to collapse the pocket around the quarterback.
Now you got a Bowling Green team coming in. What do you think of them?
I have a lot of respect for them. I coach there, so I kind of understand the mentality of that place. They've beat a lot of Power 5 teams. They came here, 2015 or 2013? I don't remember which it is.
13.
1-point game, right? Okay. They beat Marshall, who beat Notre Dame. All right. They've been to Notre Dame. They went to Tennessee last year. They beat Minnesota at Minnesota. So these guys aren't going to come in here and be intimidated by the environment or anything else or the logo on the helmet. And so that's the first and foremost thing our guys got to understand is you better be ready to play 4 quarters and come out ready to go and put a whole week together. It's more about us getting better and correcting those mistakes so we can play 4 quarters.
You mentioned, wanting to tackle a bit better. Obviously that was one thing that stood on the Arizona game as well. Is that an easy fix? Is it just kind of a fundamental thing? I guess how do you fix that mid-season?
I think it's both. I mean, the fact of the matter is if it's a leverage issue, that's easy. I mean, keep your leverage. Keep the ball where it starts. Know where your help is. As far as a physical issue, you're not going to go out and tackle the ground on a Tuesday or a Wednesday in season. So that part is a little difficult. So it's kind of a give and take on both things.
What do you remember about your time at Bowling Green?
Great college town. Really enjoyed it. That's where my daughter was born. So a lot of fond memories there. We didn't win as many games as I would like to. I'll just be completely honest with you. So that part's a little sour in my recollection of it. But no, it's a great place. Great fan base. I mean, they love football. Ohio's very similar to the South in the way it's a football state. So a lot of respect for that university and what they do.
Nobody from that staff left over here?
Nobody from the staff. I mean, obviously the administration. There's some. There's, I want to say 3 players that were there when I was there still, whatever that is, 6 years ago, yeah. So there's a little bit of familiarity there.
A chance to go back and break down the film. I mean, obviously there were some drops in the ball game. Any commonality to it? And
well,
how did you address it?
Not necessarily, but drops. And in our offense, and when you throw as much as we throw and you throw as many kind of hopefully high percentage passes, if you don't hit them, you're in trouble. So yeah, the 3rd and 2 that we dropped was a pretty critical play in the game to me, and we've got to be able to execute that thing. And again, as receivers and as a receiver coach, you always like to know if you play well and catch a ball, we win. And if you don't play very well and you drop the ball, you're in for a long night, especially versus a good team. So hopefully we can get back and be a little more proficient this week.
We've heard y'all talk a lot about whether offense or defense. You want to see guys earn trust on special teams first and then start getting reps on offense or defenses. Where does that kind of stand with Xavion and being able to?
Well, being on special teams just means you're involved in the game. I'd much rather see a guy a lot more better on offense, a lot more skilled as a wide receiver than he is a special teams guy. But as a young guy to come in and get on special teams just means you get to be involved. You get around, you get to practice, you get used to being in the fire. So for Xavier to have that opportunity to do what he did certainly gives him a chance to get on the field and play all over the place, and to show he can be trusted with the ball in the air and the ball in his hands. He did for a true freshman, first time going into that stadium and returning as well as he did was, knock on wood, pretty impressive.
True freshman just last year, Robert Thomas is the team receiving so far. What have you thought of his play?
Well, he had 2 drops last week, so you're only as good as your last game. Outside of that 1 touchdown he caught, which was elite. The 2 catches he had were really, really good. But 2 drops on 2 plays that if he catches it, honestly, both the plays, he makes a really, really big game. So, again, a huge emphasis on consistently good, not occasionally great. And that's what we got to do. We're a good team, and we play a lot of good teams. And if we're going to beat teams, we have to be consistently good. We have to be. So, room to improve, and hopefully we can get back to that.
I've seen Tulu obviously make some plays, and special teams asset. There was that 1 screen pass he had. It seems like he got going. I guess, is that something you could see more of, just to make sure he's getting the ball, get involved? Is some of those screens to him?
Sure. And most of the screens we've thrown have been pretty good. But yeah, he's probably better than anyone at them, and he is. He's kickoff return. He gets the ball and he takes off. Screens. That little hitch pass, he's caught 2 or 3 hitches and going about 20 yards. So no, he is talented with the ball in his hands, and we need to find more ways to get it to him.
You mentioned before you have some simple criteria. You get open and catch the football. And you've had some guys get open, catch a football. How do you evaluate them? Maybe in season, maybe change your depth chart a little bit, change rotation.
Still try to remain the same with that. We grade all these guys, grade them on effort, and again, the more you have players that are good at getting open and catching the ball, now you find another criteria in which to criticize or separate them. How do they block? How hard do they play? How much of a difference do they make in the game away from the ball? So there's a lot of areas that you evaluate and grade my players, but again, get open and catch the ball. If you can do that, that's my base deal every week, and you'll be measured by that, and that's what it takes to win.
Caleb had some struggles with that the last couple of weeks, but obviously some pretty good plays so far. What did you think of him?
The first game he was great. The second game he wasn't bad. I thought he made some really good plays in that game. This last game I thought he struggled a little bit, and I think he played a little bigger guy that was a little more physical. And then we had some plays that required him to fight with that guy a little bit more. But he still made some catches and did some good things. So, and again, he hadn't played much. We keep thinking Ducking's a senior and he's kind of an older guy, but his true experience is, he's still learning. So he's got to get better every week, and he will. And he's got a great attitude, and he's a good personality, and he's the type of guy you want on the field. So I look for him really to continue to do good things for us.
You mentioned kind of finding a way to get Tulu a little more involved. I mean, is there ever a situation where you would see Ra and Tulu on the field at the same time? I know they both play the same spot.
Well, people ask that, and when they both have a great game, yeah, they both should play the whole game. But when one plays a little better than the other, and when Ducking plays well, or when we do our best in the offseason, the spring, to identify who we think our best 8 guys are and distribute them accordingly. So as time goes on, if those 2 guys are better than anybody else, yeah, those 2 guys will be on the field at the same time. But honestly, right now, I love those guys, and we do. We run fast and we run hot, and if I can get both those guys 40 snaps a game, that would be great for me. And then at that Z position, I think we need to find one or certainly 2 guys that can play 40 snaps there, as well as our intended hope for our offense.
Coach Leach had said that that game at LSU wasn't one of Will Rogers' better games. I guess
that's probably fair. Point when you say.
Yeah, how much, I guess, when you assess that, does it go kind of hand in hand with the performance the receivers have, or was a lot of it, was Will missing some guys in your opinion?
There's a lot of variables that go into quarterbacks playing well, but if you want to start with drops, that's a very, very good spot to say where a quarterback doesn't have as good a day. And the 3 drops that I think we had 5 as a group, 3 in my group. But I know my 3 were easy plays that were 60 yards more receiving for the quarterback. So, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that go into how the quarterback plays, and a lot of it has to do with who you're playing. So yeah, wasn't his best game, wasn't our best game. But again, my job is to get my guys open and catch the ball, and we got to do a better job of that.